No one lasted a month, until she changed the CEO's life forever. Before this story begins, tell me in the comments, have you ever been completely underestimated because of how you look? And while you're at it, let us know where you're watching from today. If this story moves you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more powerful stories just like this one. Magnolia James stood outside the sleek glass tower of Ashton and Rowe Enterprises, clutching her thrift store tote and trying not to breathe too deeply. The air smelled like money, confidence and rejection. She had felt all of it before. At 32, she had been overqualified for every job she had applied for and for every corporate interview she actually landed. But today was different. Today she was not here to beg for a break. She was here because she had been called, the one right outside the office of Nicholas Rowe, CEO, billionaire, and a man rumored to fire people just by looking at them, called to replace a long line of executive assistants that hadn't lasted longer than a few weeks, some not even a full month. Up on the 47th floor, everyone whispered about that desk. They said he didn't believe in personal connections, that he lived off caffeine, quarterly projections, and silence. Magnolia had read the stories. She wasn't intimidated. She was curious. You're the 11th one we've tried in 5 months. If he doesn't like you by lunch, don't bother coming back tomorrow. The HR manager barely glanced up as Magnolia entered. Magnolia smiled politely, noted an empty coffee cup in the trash with lipstick on the rim. The desk was pristine, cold, like someone had intentionally wiped away every trace of the person. Before her, tall, impeccably dressed, her sensible shoes, her natural curls pulled into a bun, and exactly as emotionally unavailable as advertised. But she noticed something others might not have. A scratch on the corner, deep but old, a drawer that stuck halfway through its slide. Someone had cried here, probably more than once. At 8:01 a.m. sharp, the frosted glass door behind her swung open. "Who are you?" asked a voice as smooth as black coffee and twice as bitter. Magnolia turned slowly, and the exact way he liked his stapler aligned on the far right of his desk. "Nicholas Rowe." "Magnolia James," she said calmly. "Your new assistant." He eyed her tote bag, not kindly but curiously. Then he gave a tight nod and disappeared into his office. No greeting, no welcome. "Consider me intrigued." NR just like that. Day 1 began. By the end of the first week, Magnolia had memorized his schedule, his coffee order. She had also survived 3 tantrums from the CFO, and a fire drill that left her locked in a stairwell with the vice president of legal who cried about stress halfway down to the 23rd floor. Magnolia didn't flinch. She just handed him tissues from her purse and offered him a mint. By the second week, Nicholas started looking at her a little differently. "Where did you work before this?" he asked one morning, without looking up from his laptop. "Various places," she replied. "Sorting contracts. Some high, some humble." He raised an eyebrow. Inside was a formal warning. "Don't worry, Mr. Rowe. I don't scare easy." "Clearly," he murmured. That afternoon, she intercepted a phone call from his estranged brother and filtered out a tabloid reporter pretending to be his college friend. Nicholas didn't thank her, but that night, a fresh cappuccino appeared on her desk with a note. "You lasted 2 weeks longer than I thought you would, but it wasn't all caffeine and curiosity. If someone's trying to make me look guilty, I'd appreciate the chance to clear it." One Friday, Magnolia found a red envelope on her desk. "You are hereby reminded that personal files must not be accessed under any circumstances. Further violation will result in immediate termination." She blinked, confused. She hadn't accessed anything. James already told me why. But someone had logged in under her credentials. Later that day, she approached Nicholas.com/ "I didn't access any confidential files," she said simply. He stared at her. Then something flickered in his eyes. "You're not like the others," he said finally. "No," she agreed. "I listen before I speak." He didn't say another word, but the warning was gone the next day. What would you have done in this exact situation? Would you confront the CEO directly, stay silent, or investigate quietly? Comment your answer before we reveal what happened next. By week 4, something had shifted. Nicholas began asking for her opinion during meetings. Not publicly, of course, but privately, behind closed doors. He'd hand her a draft proposal and mutter, "Be honest." Not nice, and Magnolia always was. She questioned loopholes, pointed out flaws others missed, suggested community-focused angles his analysts never considered. At one point he stopped mid-sentence in a pitch and said, "That's not going to work." The boardroom went quiet. The team glanced at her with new eyes. After that, things changed. Nicholas would occasionally linger by her desk, ask about her weekend, offer small nods instead of curt dismissals. And then came the night that changed everything. She stayed late past 10 p.m. The office was quiet, the city lights twinkling like stars against steel. Magnolia was organizing contracts when she heard something. A crash, a groan. She followed the sound to the executive break room. Nicholas Rowe, tech titan, unshakable CEO, was collapsed on the floor, his hand gripping his chest. "Mr. Rowe," she knelt beside him. "Can you breathe, Nicholas?" He nodded weakly. "I didn't eat," he whispered. "Since yesterday, I forgot." Magnolia grabbed a bottle of juice from the fridge, popped the lid, and helped him sip slowly. He looked at her then, not as an employee, not as a fixture outside his door, but as someone real, human. "I'm fine," he said finally. "You're not," she replied. "But you will be." They sat in silence. She didn't pry. He didn't perform. Just two people. And in that still moment he said something she'd never forget. "They quietly fixed the hinges you didn't know were broken. My mother used to say, the right person doesn't knock." Magnolia looked at him. "You've been fixing mine," he said softly. The weekend after Nicholas's collapse was quiet. No schedule updates, no sarcastic memos. Monday morning, Magnolia arrived early out of habit more than worry-and, found something unexpected on her desk, a box, small, wrapped in matte navy paper, no name, no card, a silver pen, elegant weighted engraved with the words, "To the one who didn't leave." Magnolia blinked. Nicholas wasn't in yet. But when he arrived 20 minutes later, unusually calm, he paused in front of her desk and said just one thing: "Thank you." No sarcasm, no clipped tone, just gratitude. The air shifted after that. Meetings felt warmer. Nicholas smiled. Once during a presentation, the entire marketing team nearly passed out, but not everyone was thrilled. Janet, the company's longtime chief of staff, had been watching Magnolia from day one, and she didn't like what she saw. A nobody assistant becoming a No, that didn't fit the corporate hierarchy she'd helped build, so she did what many threatened professionals do. "But you've worked mostly in coffee shops and nonprofits and shelters and a literacy program for formerly incarcerated women." She looked for dirt. By Wednesday, Magnolia was invited to lunch by Janet. She knew it wasn't a real invitation. It was an interrogation wrapped in kale and condescension. "Surprisingly well," Janet said with a polite smile. Magnolia nodded. Janet's smile thinned. "My son and I lived in a shelter after his father disappeared and left us with debt. I worked my way back, got certified, took whatever jobs I could, and now I'm here. I assume that's what you were going to dig up anyway." And before that, Magnolia hesitated. "No, it's just the truth. Brave is staying when you have the option to leave. I didn't." She had promised herself she'd never bring it up, not here, not in this tower of egos and suits, but something told her the truth was already being twisted elsewhere. "I was homeless for about a year," she said evenly. Janet blinked. Magnolia took a slow sip of her coffee. "Standard practice. Before you were hired." Janet forced a laugh. "Well, that's brave." Magnolia stood. Later that day, Nicholas called her into his office about the shelter. The bankruptcy emails slowed, glances sharpened. "I'll find who did it and make sure they never work again. The night shifts, all of it. I heard about lunch." Of course he had. "And?" Magnolia asked, folding her arms. "For me, for whatever this is, and I wish I had half your resilience," he said quietly. "Most people hide their truth. You carry yours like armor." She blinked. "Thank you," she said, voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause. Then he said something that caught her completely off guard. "I had you investigated. You know." She stared at him. "I knew," he continued. "Then why did you hire me?" He leaned forward. "Because everyone else had polish. You had grit. And I needed someone who wouldn't run when things got real." Just when things felt stable, the storm hit. An internal memo leaked, one that mentioned Magnolia by name, suggesting unprofessional closeness and even personal involvement with Nicholas. It spread like wildfire. She walked into the break room and the whispering stopped. Nicholas was furious. "This is corporate sabotage," he growled, slamming his office door. But Magnolia, she was quiet. "I'm used to being underestimated," she said softly, "but I won't be disrespected." She handed him her ID badge. "I'm stepping back until this is cleared." Nicholas stood. "No, you don't have to." "I do," she interrupted gently. "For you." Their eyes locked, the air thick with emotion and truth. Then she turned and walked away. For the first time in a long time, Nicholas Rowe, CEO, billionaire, untouchable, felt powerless. He didn't even know her favorite flower, her middle name, or how she took her coffee on bad days. But he knew one thing. He wasn't letting her go, not like this. What would you do if your reputation was attacked for doing the right thing? Would you walk away quietly, or fight to clear your name? Drop your answer below. We read every comment. 3 days passed. No texts, no calls, just silence. Magnolia tried to stay busy, helped her neighbor's daughter with homework, reapplied to 2 part-time admin jobs she didn't really want, but her heart wasn't in any of it. His legendary focus had cracked. He missed meetings, ignored lunch, and barked at people who didn't deserve it. Back at Rowe Global, things weren't the same either. Nicholas was distracted. Until finally, during a late-night review of department budgets, he slammed his laptop shut and stood. He couldn't think about profit margins when the one person who saw past all of it was gone. The next morning he showed up at Magnolia's door, not in a suit, not with the driver, holding 2 coffees, and looking like a man who hadn't slept. Just, "Nicholas, not because I needed an assistant, because I needed you." Wearing jeans, it might be. "I never should have let you walk away," he said the moment she opened the door. She stared at him, speechless. Then, Behind her, her 8-year-old son Elijah peeked around the corner. Nicholas blinked. "Hi there," Elijah raised an eyebrow. "Are you the boss who makes my mom talk to herself after work?" Nicholas laughed for the first time in days. Magnolia exhaled and stepped aside. "Come in." They sat at the small kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee. No security, no driver, just you. She asked. He nodded. "I wanted to apologize. In person, you're making it sound like I saved the company. You saved me before you arrived. No one challenged me. No one saw me as human. Head of HR plotting to sabotage Magnolia and frame the leak to make it look like favoritism. You made me better, Magnolia. And I didn't even know your favorite flower until yesterday, for not realizing that this company runs better when you're in it. They faked the whole narrative just to push me out. For what? For letting rumors speak louder than I did. For not protecting you sooner." Magnolia blinked. Nicholas leaned forward. Her eyes softened. "Lavender," he smiled. "Of course it is." Just then, Magnolia's phone buzzed. A notification from an anonymous email address. All it takes is one rumor to get her out. Subject: a leak. Body: check the documents attached. The truth isn't what it seems. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Attached was a PDF. A string of messages between two executives, Janet and Richard. Magnolia gasped. "And I trust her." Nicholas read over her shoulder, expression darkening. "They planned this," she whispered. Nicholas stood jaw tight. "Then we pushed back." The next morning, Nicholas didn't go to his office. He stood in the center of the conference room, flanked by his legal team, as Janet and Richard walked in, smug and "Before we begin," he said calmly, "I want to play something." He hit play on his laptop, and the room filled with the sound of recorded voices. Janet's voice. "She's gaining too much favor, and now, I don't want to imagine this place without you." Richard's reply. "Let the whispers spread. Once she leaves, we pretend to investigate. Nicholas will cool down. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We are listening." Silence followed. Janet paled. Nicholas crossed his arms. "You tried to destroy someone's reputation. You misused company resources. You forgot one thing: I choose who I trust." He slid termination letters across the table. "Security will escort you out." By noon, both were gone. And by evening, Magnolia's badge had been reactivated. But the biggest surprise came at 5:45 p.m. Nicholas called a company-wide town hall. Magnolia stood beside him, confused. He turned to the staff. "You all know her as my assistant. But that title ends today." Gasps filled the room. "She's now a director of people and culture, and anyone who has a problem with that can report to her." The room broke into stunned applause. Magnolia's hand shook. She looked up at Nicholas. "Why me? Because no one lasted a month. Until you..." And as the applause echoed through the building, Magnolia finally smiled, this time for herself. "What would you have done if your name was dragged through the mud just for doing a good job? Would you walk away or stand and fight?"